Freedom is the right to tell what they do not want to hear. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Tired of the same repetitive government narratives? Then wave goodbye to the distractions and rhetoric of corporate media. For this is Anti-Media Radio.
But I want to get the language right. The government is in trouble.
You're all a bunch of slaves.
What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
What's your definition of media?
And now, here's your host, S.M. Gibson.
My name is S.M. Gibson, and you're listening to Anti-Media Radio. It is May the 25th, 2017. A lot has happened since we last spoke. Of course, the biggest news is the terror attack that took place in Manchester in the United Kingdom over the weekend. Absolutely terribly tragic event targeting what appeared to be young girls attending a pop concert. 22 dead and a ton more wounded. And now we see the UK, Theresa May, the Prime Minister, and the government aiming to involve themselves more in Syria, and for some reason politicians cannot get it through their head that the more involvement they have militarily in other countries, the more these kind of events take place. Nobody seems to comprehend that an eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. It appears that it's just a bunch of greed and bloodlust. And it's a sad state of affairs because there's innocent people on all sides that die. We've got a couple of stories about the Middle East and civilians getting killed we're going to talk about tonight. But before we get into any of that, I want to go ahead and bring in our co-host for the evening, Mr. Shannon Madden. Shannon, what is up?
Good evening, Mr. Gibson. Living the dream all day, every day.
So, what's your, I don't know how much you've kept up with what's been going on over in England and Manchester, but what's your...
I'll be quite frank with you. When I first heard about it, I immediately tuned it out. Immediately. I have not... I'm like a lot of Americans. I'm so burnt out on every single bit of terror talk and every bit of mudslinging and he said, she said, and immediately everybody pointing fingers as far as who's at fault and then people making jokes about it. And man, it's just too much. It really is. And again, what little I do know is that we have yet another terror attack. We have a lot of London. I actually caught an article yesterday about Morrissey having some very strong talk about clamping down on immigration policy there.
Yeah, people are mad at Morrissey right now.
Yeah. I'm like a lot of Americans. I'm pretty burnt out. I really am, and I'm burnt out primarily because, for me, anyways, I'm burnt out because we talk about the source of where all of this terror is coming from every single broadcast. And like a lot of people, like-minded people like you and myself, who talk about these things in open terms and try to explain exactly why what is going on over there. I mean, people just thought that, the Middle East woke up one day with a chip on their shoulder for America, and we don't like the way that those Americans live, so we're going to do something about it. And that's pretty much most of, Middle America's, view of why terrorism exists. And we both know that's not the case.
Well, certainly. And, and I don't think there's any shame whatsoever in saying that you're burnt out over hearing all this stuff. I don't think it's even an American thing. I think it's all over the world. People are just sick and tired of hearing about politics, about the division, about the divisiveness. I mean, it's so completely over the top now. It's so ridiculous.
And now it's been politicized and used left versus right. It's almost to the point where when I see the word terrorist, I'm kind of shocked that there's not that little trademark symbol right beside it. Like it's its own brand now, because the word terrorist has made a lot of people a lot of money.
It has. And, I don't think it's necessarily just the topic of terrorism, but I think it's politics all around the board. I mean, you go down the rabbit hole of just Trump. Okay. I think that election drug on for so long, and the newness has worn off, and it's just, here we go again. It's the same old same. And it feels like things are never going to change. The people that do pay attention, the people that do have some sort of semblance of reality of what's actually taking place in the world, I think a lot of these people are really frustrated because, especially with Trump's trip over the weekend to Saudi Arabia, I mean, for anybody that thought that Trump was going to be different and that Trump was going to try, he was going to be a different breed, well, that went all out the window when he got in bed with Saudi Arabia over the weekend. I mean, this is the same guy that brought up the fact that Saudi Arabia was definitely intertwined with what happened on 9/11. And now he's receiving an award and taking their checks. Ivanka even got $100 million for a fund she has.
No. Don't just say a fund she has. What exactly is that fund?
It's for women's rights. But you have to remember that Saudi Arabia is the head of the Human Rights Council, the chair of the Human Rights Council for the United Nations. It's a big farce. I mean, it's a joke. So this is the world we're living in, and I totally understand the sentiment of being frustrated with it. It's why I think it's a lot of people. I think it's a lot of people. I mentioned this at the top of the show real quick. I want to hit on this, and we can go back to this, but I want to bring up these real quick two stories we've got on the front page of the antimedia.org right now. They're on the left-hand column under Our News. The original stories that we publish here on the Anti-Media and a few aggregate partners that we work with as well. The first story is in Syria this week. U.S. airstrikes killed 16 civilians, including 5 children. It was on Tuesday, and they wounded actually a large number of others, and they said because of the wounded, they were wounded so badly that they do expect the death toll to rise. So the Pentagon, by the way, has not issued a statement on the attack or the civilian deaths. The airstrike and the casualties are being reported by the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. But this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show with the terrorist attacks. 16 civilians killed, including 5 children. And this brings me to the other story. It's actually at the top of the Our News section on the antimedia.org. And this was confirmed today by U.S. Central Command, I believe, that in March, the United States was targeting ISIS fighters in Mosul in Iraq. And whoops, they missed the mark and killed at least 105 civilians. 105 civilians. U.S. targeting Islamic State fighters in Mosul in March killed at least 105 civilians when the blast caused ISIS weapons to explode, a U.S. general said on Thursday. The secondary explosion triggered a rapid failure of the structure, which killed the 2 ISIS snipers, 101 civilians, and 4 civilians in the neighboring structure. An additional 36 civilians who are believed to be connected to the structure still remain unaccounted for. So in reality, the death toll is actually higher than 105 because we know how the United States government spends this. You've got 36 people missing on top of the 105 that were killed. This happened back on March 17th. It's kind of amazing that they're coming out and admitting, and of course they're throwing it back on, well, ISIS. But think about this. Over 100 civilians killed. And what we just saw in Manchester, which was a terrible tragedy, saw 22 people get killed as young as 8 years old. But we're talking all these stories. There's children involved in these stories when we're talking Iraq and Syria and Yemen, or whatever country it is.
But at the same time, though, it's much different when we blow up children because, obviously those children were going to grow up to be terrorists.
And that's so sad that it's spun that way, but it's just treated like people in the Middle East are less than human because these numbers come out and you just kind of get, and, something like happens in Manchester and it's such a big deal. And look, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it being a big deal whatsoever. It's just absolutely horrible what happened. But I think all these stories should be that big of a deal. You get into kind of the meme that floats around the internet of people, everybody loses their mind, when something like Manchester happens and nothing happens, nobody cares about what happens in the Middle East when we report these stories. And there's some truth to that, but I don't think it should be,
well, there is some truth. Well, there's
a ton of truth to it. But
one thing that it negates, though, is the fact that back home, back in the Middle East, where all these bombs are dropping, these people are infuriated and they're enraged. And you think about if the same scenario were happening here in the United States with the mentality that people have, they would join whatever cause they could to stop those bombs from dropping, take up whatever religious cause that they need to, do whatever their government asks them to make these bombs stop. And then not only that, but not only do we give an eye for an eye, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show. No, we take it a step further. We want limbs. We want the whole town and village destroyed for that one person's misdeed. I don't get that, man. I don't get the bloodlust. I really don't.
And that's true. I mean, that's what it is. But people's like when it happens close to home and people are so sad and people are so upset. Think about that on a weekly occurrence in your country, like an event like Manchester taking place every single week. And when it happens, the people that are responsible for it just kind of shrug and go, oops, sorry, we meant to hit something else. That's the reality for a lot of people in this world. And yes, people should be outraged and furious over what happened in Manchester. But at the same time, human life is human life. And people should be just as outraged at what's going on in the Middle East. And worse yet, our tax dollars are funding this nonsense. people just kind of seem to brush it off, and I know that a lot of it is not just the everyday person's fault, because you have to remember there's so much propaganda that goes into this, and you have the corporate media that's not there to talk about human rights. They're not there to talk about what's really going on in the world. They're not going to tell you what your tax dollars are going to kill a bunch of innocent civilians. They're there to tell you a bunch of propaganda to steer you down these roads of just ridiculousness, Russia, 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 and all this garbage. And they want you looking a completely opposite direction from what's actually taking place and what's going on. I mean, how many times, and I don't want to have this conversation for the millionth time, but how many times do they talk about Russia interfering in elections, and they never mention Saudi Arabia interfering in elections? Sorry, they do. They've got more money than they know what to do with. Even in something that was like the Iran deal, when they were running commercials over here to stop the Iran deal, guess who was funding all those commercials? It was Saudi Arabia, set up with all these groups and organizations. Oh, we love America group, or whatever they call it that week. But they're all paid for by Saudis.
Hey, real quick. Last Christmas, did you go like to the shopping mall to go shopping, Christmas shopping? Did you see one of those Santas with the little bell and the little basket there, little money pot there? Put some money in there.
The Salvation Army?
Yeah, I think Salvation Army. Or March of Dimes. It's one of the two. Anyways, yeah, but you saw the Santa. Everybody sees the Santa. Everybody reaches in their pocket and gives a dime. Saudi Arabia reached in their pocket and gave $100 million to a Santa that just happened to be Ivanka Trump.
Oh, and that was for nothing.
Tell me that's not going to influence something.
That was for just coming over and saying hey to us. I mean,
yeah, that's just like, what's up?
The real money was cut with $350 billion with a B over the next 10 years for more arms and more weapons. 110, right under 110 billion off the top. And that's basically going to fund more of what we're talking about, but what's going on in Yemen, plus with the disease that's going on over there, plus with the famine that's just out of control in Yemen right now. And that's more devastation that the United States has helped taking part in. We talk about these countries and they're, this country did this or this country did that with their human rights abuses. Saudi Arabia does all that tenfold, and nobody cares because they've got the money. They can just write the check and make it go away. When Saudi Arabia got on the Human Rights Council, the head of the UN said at the time, like he acknowledged that it was ridiculous, but he said basically the situation was this. Saudi Arabia said they wanted this position. If they did not get it, they would stop giving money to the UN. And he said, and we use that money for this, this, and this. He said, so all these other people would suffer if we didn't do this. So we just did it. And he's openly acknowledging that they just bought their way onto it. I mean, that's what, money makes the world go round. We're not talking right or wrong here. It's all about money. And nobody stands up for what's right or wrong. Really. Again, it's propaganda, money, and greed. And that's the world we're living in. And if you didn't see that with what happened over the weekend with Donald Trump, then you have no clue what's going on. And if you still think that this collusion of Trump and Russia is what's going to devastate America and harm the world, you have no idea what's going on. It's going to be the same alliances that we've had forever. Again, the Saudis gave $25 million for Hillary Clinton to become president. She didn't win, but guess what? It didn't hurt them because
that was just a drop in the bucket. $25 million is nothing.
That's nothing, and that's what's on paper. That's not. Who knows what's really funneled through in different way, shape, and form. I mean, there's no telling what we don't see and what we don't know.
Looky here. I got to get something off my chest. I feel like we need to go ahead and call out Julian Assange and expose right now, who dumped those leaks? Because the Seth Rich story, which ignited and then got burned out just as quick as it got ignited, Fox News has now officially retracted the story. That's also up on the page on antimedia.org.
That happened pretty quick, though. I will
say it happened extremely quick. And really, the thing that's frustrating me the most is that there's one person who knows the truth. And I think really it's time for him to come clean. And that's Julian Assange. Julian Assange knows who and that right there is the most frustrating thing about this whole case. The fact that he did allude to the fact that, he cared enough about Seth Rich's murder to offer up $20,000 for information about the killer.
Go ahead and forget that.
Responsible.
Assange ain't gonna do it. But you've got, and I don't know if you paid attention, but Hannity's still carrying the flag, carrying the banner, and
have you heard about the Kim.com story?
Yeah, oh yeah. And see, here's the thing. Let me tell everybody about Kim.com real quick. There may be something to what he's saying, and I hope there is, and I hope the truth comes out. But I learned, and I'm not saying that what he has isn't true. I don't know. But when he was hyping up his big thing the other day and came out with the whole panda, talking about that was Seth Rich's code name. And that's basically the only information that he really dropped. But before that, he was hyping it up. And during the election, he would go on these tangents on Twitter and hype up that this info's coming out, this is going to happen. Guarantee it, write it down. None of it ever did. I mean, he's a great salesman. And it was stuff that would just kind of leak through with WikiLeaks. That's more what he was alluding to, but it was never quite what he said, and he always overhyped everything. So I kind of felt like going into his info with Seth Rich, it was going to be more the same. I kind of got my feel of his showmanship, if you want to call it, during the election, and kind of knew to kind of tune him out a little bit. Now, that's not to say that...
keep him at arm's length, put it that way. Yeah.
Right. And that's not to say that... And I've kept up, with everything he's been saying this time around. I just wasn't shocked that it wasn't as jaw-dropping as he made it seem. And maybe he does have the info. I hope he does, and I hope it goes to the right people, and I hope the truth comes out. But we have to be, be careful moving forward. Nothing that's happened has changed the truth of the situation. Nothing.
And that's why I'm really so frustrated with Assange at this particular juncture on this particular case. And I know that he has his standards. We've discussed that on the show at great length. But, we're at a point now where it's not just simply a matter of he said, she said. We've implicated a whole entire country. And are still, and of course that none of that has died down as far as the fact that we have strong intelligence. United States has strong intelligence that points towards Russia's involvement in those WikiLeaks.
That's the most. But here's the thing: they talk about there being no evidence with Seth Rich. There's no evidence with Russia, and I don't know if you saw this. This is just kind of a laugh. Louise Minch.
That old hag.
I don't know how she's not locked up in a mental institution. But she said that General Flynn, Mike Flynn, he's got the whole Russia connection, blah, 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 blah. Her tweet was, let me see if I can find it. Because it's just bonkers. I've got to pull it up here. I don't want to do it disservice by misquoting it because it's that crazy. For what he has done, this is coming from Louise Minch's Twitter account. For what he has done, General Flynn could be looking at the death penalty. The death penalty.
Wow.
She's crazy. Like, is she pulling an Andy Kaufman? Like, is it that level?
Well, I mean, you know, and I have to ask. I have to ask that with all of this information that's being spun around and backwards and forwards and sideways, and you know, we have for one brief moment we have, you know, possibly some insight as to who actually killed Seth Rich, even if it was somebody that happened to be, you know, a botched robbery gone wrong, and they decided at the last moment after they shot him, nah, we don't want to rob him, and take off running. I don't know. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Especially if you're going to go to the trouble of shooting somebody. You might as well at least, get what you came for.
Get a watch.
There's also, and again, I've been doing a lot of, I've done a lot of digging in on this one. There is a theory going around now that there were possible Russian operatives, actually.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, and I believe there's a GOP representative has introduced some kind of inquiry into his death, or this, that, and other, some formal inquiry under that assumption.
There has. I mean, it's getting. It kind of died down for a couple of days, like you said, but it's still pretty hot and heavy because now WorldNet Daily's gotten involved, and their Twitter account got blocked.
Oh yeah, I saw that. It actually got locked out for like 12 hours or
yeah.
Or like that,
And they're bringing in Donna Brazil now to it, and we're talking. And then there was a DNC spokesperson that was supposedly speaking on behalf of the family. And again, this is what happens when there's stories like this, is that all of a sudden a million different stories start coming out, which implicates this person, everybody. And that is a tactic.
Steve Bannon has now been linked with the fellow who actually funded the private investigator, the one that came forward.
But see, here's the thing: it's irrelevant, because here's the deal with it. Is when there's stuff like this happens, and people start getting on the trail of something that could be hurt a political candidate or hurt somebody in position of power. You get all these crazy million different stories, and it's done as a propaganda tool to muddy the waters. And
the one thing that nobody has come forth with, whatever happened to his computer. I mean, all of this is about hacks and leaks and things
I think
to
they
do with
supposedly
the
have it.
Who?
The FBI supposedly had it, I thought.
The FBI has denied that they had it and said that the local police had it. The local police says that they gave it over to the FBI.
Right.
Where is the computer?
Well,
so right out of the gate. I mean, that's one crucial piece of evidence that would pretty much lay to rest any of this discussion or any of this talk that we're having. All of this supposition that's being bandied back and forth. Obviously, any communication that he had, whether it be encrypted or otherwise, there's going to be something on his computer that would point one way or the other, correct? Or they pull his computer out and say, "Look, there's nothing on it." See?
But see, and you've got to remember this too. And I brought this up last week. The biggest evidence that should exist are the CCTV cameras. I don't know exactly if there are CCTV cameras on that corner. It's
a very affluent neighborhood in Washington, D.C., so I would assume that,
I mean, Washington,
for obvious security reasons, with the many politicians that live in that area and political staffers and so on and so forth, people that are connected with the White House and Capitol Hill, you would think that they would have pretty much a camera on every street corner, right?
There are most street corners there, and you can even get on the DC Police website and look up the location of a lot of the CCTV cameras. I mean, it's covered in them, but I don't know if there's one exactly pointing there. I haven't been to the location. I can't tell.
One that even has like people running away, even like maybe
right.
a couple feet away from where it happened, where the camera actually did pick it up. Somebody running one way or hearing a gunshot or whatever the case may be.
And you've got the the gunshot detection technology now, and that's how it actually was reported, the gunshot. So with all the CCTV cameras, there should be something on film somewhere. None of that's even spoken about, and I think it's. I don't know what we're going to see from it.
Where is the computer? Again,
it's
we're
wherever
talking
they
about
want it to be.
This man is the source of the WikiLeaks, or has had communication with Russia or something, anything. It has to be on this computer, and the computer's nowhere to be found. Both agencies are pointing at each other. No, I don't have it. They got it. No, we never got it. You guys have it.
But you have to remember, the official story is he was a good DNC employee and he was robbed, and even though they didn't take anything, and was killed. That's the official deal that they're putting out there. It was nothing that was anything short of just wrong place, wrong time. That's how they're selling it.
Yeah.
So
and again, that makes perfect sense. Washington D.C. is a very dangerous town. It's very high in crime. Lots of things happen. We're talking about a large metropolitan area.
I think at this point with that story, though, and I warn people of this, getting information via a lot of media outlets right now, I think a lot of it's just rumors being spread. And until we get hard evidence come out, I think it's just going to be a lot.
There are so many news stories out there, and I'm glad you brought that up. So many of these news stories, mainstream news stories that I've seen, one by one, are basing this off of supposition, basing this off of
they don't know anything.
The family's feelings, and the family's feelings. That's fine and dandy. That they may not have want their son to that participated in this. They may have known their son was participating in this, trying to cover it up and keep his name somehow, free of the same taint that Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning had to endure.
It's hard to say, you can't. It's hard to speak on behalf of the family because I'm sure what they're going through is absolutely traumatic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, they're missing their son. Their son is dead, regardless of who did it, even if it was a botched robbery. But at the same time,
talking point, and they have
to
hear his
just because people have emotions about it doesn't mean that it's going to be okay. Well, case closed. The family doesn't want us to talk about it, so we're not going to talk about it. No, I think justice needs to be done, one way or the other. That whoever killed Seth Rich needs to answer to justice.
I truly am surprised that it's even become a national talking point, because this happened months ago. And nobody talked about it. Nobody discussed it. And I figured it'd be like anything else.
Because the WikiLeaks came out shortly thereafter, and there was nothing else to talk about but the WikiLeaks.
Plus the election.
that little trite affair.
Right. That's pretty much what everybody was talking about. But we'll see what happens. You've got advertisers that are trying to, back away off of Hannity, and then it was rumored he was going to get fired, and supposedly, he's taking a vacation, and he's coming back. They've already said.
Can you imagine that, though, if O'Reilly and Hannity at the same time were to go from Fox?
Hannity's not going to get fired over this. Woo-hoo! He's not going to get fired over this.
Yeah, I don't think there was ever a doubt, really. He's their moneymaker right now.
Yeah, but people just need to keep their eyes and ears open and try to weed through the information the best they can. And just because they see a story come out that fits the narrative that you believe to be true, don't necessarily jump on top of it, because I'm telling you, they're putting out a bunch of disinformation right now about this story to confuse everybody. Purposely. Does that change my opinion from what I've said since day one about this story? No, it does not. I believe what I believe, but for actually to be convicted,
and we don't believe what we believe because one party says we should or one party says we shouldn't, or the fact that we're into conspiracy theory, so we're going to add this one into the mix. There's just, something smelled fishy about this story from day one when we first talked about it, just days after it happened. And yeah, here we are.
And, and it's one of those things only time's going to tell. Hopefully justice will be served. I honestly don't expect that to happen, but hopefully it will. I'm jaded and negative to pretty much everything that comes out and goes on. It's like you were talking about at the beginning of the show. You're just kind of worn down from all of it. And you see this stuff over and over and over. You just kind of expect it to be the same, just a different page of the same book. So, again, we shall see. We have, though, I want to bring this up, too. I definitely don't want to leave the story out. We've actually got it on a couple of places right now on the front page of the antimedia.org, different versions of basically the same story. But pretty much, here's the deal. The Pentagon has come out. The Army failed to keep track of $1 billion worth of arms in Iraq and Kuwait. A newly declassified Pentagon audit has revealed that the U.S. Army has failed to keep track of more than $1 billion worth of weapons and military equipment, including tens of thousands of assault rifles and hundreds of armored vehicles in Iraq and Kuwait. Amnesty International, who obtained the Pentagon report, said it makes for especially sobering reading given the long history of leakage of U.S. arms to multiple armed groups committing atrocities in Iraq, including ISIS itself. And this is why everything is such this gray, blurred area with everything, with terrorism, with the Middle East, with all of it. They're being funded by us. They're getting weapons by us. There's weapons going missing. We're training rebels in Syria that turn out to be Al-Qaeda. It's a mess. It's a mess from top to bottom. And it is so understandable why people are getting fed up, why they are tuning it out. They're not tuning it out because they don't care. They're tuning it out because they feel helpless to all of it. Trust me, I can tell you right now, I've been so over the majority of this. I mean, how many times have I just screamed and ranted that I say, it's over, Shannon. It's over. It's done. And I get, that's the positive outlook that I have over it. But, yeah, it don't seem like it's changing one bit. You do have a few people that are trying to do the right thing. You've got Rand Paul right now. He's at least trying to get some accountability on this arms deal that we just cut with Saudi Arabia. He's trying to get a vote on it. I saw earlier that Justin Amash is now trying to do the same thing in the House of Representatives. But do they have enough support? I don't know. I mean, I don't know why anything would change between now and what happened under Obama, because Obama sold them over $100 billion worth of weapons while he was in office.
Yeah. It seems like, again, and we've said it time and time and time again, it's Bush's fifth term.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the same old, same old, same.
I mean, we got some different guy, some new guy in front of the TV, and he's saying a lot of funny stuff and making funny faces and doing funny dances with the Saudis and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's still business as usual.
Unfortunately.
And it frustrates me so much that people are not asking the right questions.
Well, they don't, because they buy into the whole partisanship of it all, and they still think that there's a difference, and they still think that
my team is the one that's going to make the difference. My team is going to kick your team's ass, and we're going to show you how it's done.
And everybody thinks they're smarter than the other guy, and everybody thinks they know more than the other guy. But in reality, none of us really know anything, because it's a giant mess. And I can tell you this, one thing that is for certain is neither party is right. Neither party is there to serve the interest of the people. They're there to serve their own personal interest, the people involved in the party. They're there to serve their corporate masters who keep the money rolling to the donors, the lobbyists. People need to wake up to how this is being run. And you still get these partisan issues, and it drives me crazy. We're so far past any of that because we're broke as a country. We have to address the biggest problems in front of us. And everybody still wants to talk about these piddly issues, which there are numerous. And for instance, the bathroom issue that we dealt with in North Carolina a few months ago.
Well, luckily we didn't have to deal with it because we're not transgender.
But here's the deal. This isn't pro that. This isn't against that. This is neither. I don't care because we have way bigger problems. And if people really are trying to exert their energy and put their focus on something like that, look, we're way past arguing about bathrooms.
And again, though, but you have to think though, where did transgendered people use the bathroom before? I mean, why did it all of a sudden become this issue?
Who cares? But that's the thing. I don't care. And if that bothers people, that's fine. We've got way more important things to be concerned about. I don't want anybody being oppressed or treated, everybody should be treated equally. Everybody should be treated fairly, period. But we have to have priorities as far as there's a bunch of people getting killed. We're broke. We're funding all of this. And we also have people getting killed on both sides, of course, a lot more in the Middle East. But what we just saw in Manchester, why is stuff like that happening? Again, all these issues, all this stuff, it's meant to divide people. It works because people are divided.
And here we are talking about all this other stuff, and meanwhile, something that we should probably have spent the whole show talking about. How did we suddenly just lose $1 billion in weapons in enemy territory to fall into enemy hands? Maybe was that on purpose? Maybe
there's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like to me. Because if ISIS is well funded and well armed and well trained, well, they make a very tough adversary that we have to fight for years and years and years and occupy all of these territories. It's perfect.
Here's something, though, people need to remember about the government is, and I do think there is, there's scheming definitely going on, and there's stuff that we don't know, and there's plans and blah, 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 and there's interest to be served. But you have to take into account, too, that a lot of these people are just really stupid. And a lot of it's just happenstance and a bunch of whoops. And that's probably what a lot of the weapons going missing are, just negligent, stupid people not caring. Look, when you see all these civilians getting killed, do you believe that Barack Obama or Donald Trump are sitting here, ordering the military to go take out all these civilians? No. I don't believe they're doing that, but they don't care. They're just like, whatever, just, launch a missile wherever it hits. Big deal. We got more missiles. Let's just keep the money train rolling here. We can get more missiles. But no, people still die. It doesn't matter if it was on purpose or and you can't call it an accident either, because an accident is something happening one time and the person that did it going, look, that was terrible. We're really sorry about that. We don't ever want that to happen again. Once it happens over and over and over, while it's not, hey, we're going to do this, it's then you've made the choice to continue doing it. So it's not just everybody's absolved from it because they're not saying, hey, we're targeting these people. But at the same time, bring the troops home. People are idiots. Why aren't we doing any of this? None of it makes sense, and everybody's just kind of okay with the bloodshed.
And it's just like dealing with a cheating spouse who does it over and over and over again. Man, I'm looking to get a divorce. And that's really, I'm sorry, but our system is completely broken. It is beyond repair. It's time for a new system.
Well,
and what that system is or how it's achieved, I don't know. But that's what we need to be coming together to discuss, instead of all of this stupid little petty micro division here and there that is keeping purposely keeping the public fully uninformed and fully uneducated. And then there's all this misinformation, #fake news, coming from all different sources, and people are grabbing and latching on to anything that they can confirm or somehow, because this website and this political expert and this person over here says it, so on and so forth. Well, bam, those are all educated, well-intentioned people. So yeah, that's got to be the truth for me.
The biggest problem
come up with so many of these news stories lately
is the infrastructure of power, I think. You talk about a new system, you get people saying, oh, let's have communism, or let's have socialism, or let's have capitalism, or let's do this, or let's do that.
Let's not have an ism. How about that?
But you always get somebody on the other side, and you're right, but you always get somebody on the other side that's going to make an argument against it, and they're always going to have something they can point to that makes that system sound terrible. And a lot of these systems are terrible. They don't work. But what people need to remember when you say my system works and your system doesn't, look, it's human nature is what's controlling these systems. Communism in and of itself is not terrible. Capitalism in and of itself is not terrible. They're just a structure, a way to run society, and a way to run a large group of people. It's the human element and human nature. Once you put them into the equation is when everything goes awry. And people always overlook that human nature does some really messed up stuff. And there's a lot of greed involved in people. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Power corrupts. And you see it no matter if you're talking the Soviet Union in the 60s and the 70s, or you're talking
2017.
Or you're talking the United States today. You can talk about anything. It's not the system in place. It's the people in charge. And you see it across the board in every country. Everywhere there's power, that people are scrounging and killing and lying and fighting to gain that power. And once they get there, they're not doing it to serve the interest of the people. Of course, there's always a handful of exceptions to everything, because not everything is just this blanket one thing with anything. But when you're talking politics, power, more times than not, you're getting someone that is either corrupt going in or will be corrupted very soon, because there's going to be money flashed in their face. And it's too much for a lot of people to handle. But again, you have to remember, people are trying to, they're chasing the brass ring, basically, once you get into politics. Like there's already that mentality in your head, I'm going to do this. I know what's best for people. And people are going to get what they can get out of it. I think it's a mental illness that most politicians have. But, it's human nature with all things. People have to wake up and realize that. They have to stop blaming this or that. And it's this, this thing I don't like, my thing's right, your thing's wrong. Everything creates division. Everything creates division. Borders of countries create division. We're all human beings on this planet. And we talk about, should we have borders, should we not have borders? Look, I don't care what we do. Have borders, don't have borders. Just treat people fairly no matter what border you're in. Don't bomb people. Let's just start there. We have to start somewhere. And there's a million different problems to be addressed. I get that. But if you can't address just something that basic and that simple, if you can't address that, then you got no shot with any of the other stuff. None.
Well, and I think we both can agree that there is a certain, percentage of the populace that needs to be governed. There are,
I think there's total truth to that.
Dare I say it, the people of Walmart, I guess you could say. There are some people that are just not going to be able to grasp the concepts to be able to do for themselves, particularly after years and years and years of, Uncle Sam lending a helping hand in the form of welfare checks and, assistance here and assistance there. And most of it's assistance that wasn't really a life or death situation. I really don't feel like doing much, so I'm going to go ahead and try to collect this check and just sit back and let Uncle Sam tell me what to do and guide me from here on out. And when they call upon me to go march down to the polls, then I march down to the polls. I will. And whoever's going to keep that check coming in. And this also goes for the elderly too. That's why we see so much rhetoric on both sides about Medicare and assistance for the elderly, and it's all about fear. That's
how the populace is controlled. Absolutely.
Whether it be in the form of a jet plane with missiles or a politician standing on TV talking about how the other side's going to take away your Medicare. Mm-hmm. It's all fear. That is their main weapon, and that is their main tool. And by educating ourselves, we can reduce that fear greatly. Very, 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 very true.
And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have all the answers, and I'm not on here advocating.
We're here asking questions. That's it.
I'm not here advocating for some new system of government. We have to handle things on a human level. At the end of the day, it's just humans that have gotten themselves in a certain position controlling things. And it's, of course, the people with the money, and it's people with power that get themselves to the top. People with money, they do a lot of good. There's people with money in the world that do great things for people. And there's people with money in the world that do a lot of horrific, horrible things. So again, it's not saying, oh, well, money, being rich is evil, blah, 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 whatever. Everybody wants to blame something. People have to get past trying to blame something and look at the people walking around this planet. And it's not because this person's white, because this person's black, because this person's from this country, because this person has this religion. Guess what? You're going to find any demographic of people you want. You're going to find good people in it, and you're going to find bad people in it. It does not matter, because we're all humans, period. There's nothing that's infallible. There's nothing that's, it doesn't matter. People have to realize this. Until they do, nothing's going to change. Until you always blame something. If you find something to blame, that's the problem. Until that changes, we're going to be exactly where we're at, period. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. It's kind of where we're at right now.
And we can't agree on the stuff we should all agree on. And that's why I harp so much on foreign policy. Who are these people? And I know they're out there. Who's saying, let's just go kill all these people? I know they're out there, Shannon. There's lots of them. What's wrong with you? But of course, it's like you just said. They get put in that position and they go to that place because of fear. Because you always pit somebody against something. Well, they're going to hurt you. They're going to take this away from you. They're going to do this. So please do what we want. Do what we want, support what we want, because those other people are going to get you. And education is totally a vital, vital, vital tool in getting past all this crap. You don't have to be scared of everything in the world. You don't have to be scared of this or that. You could walk outside right now, no matter where you live, and get mugged and shot by anybody. You could walk outside right now and go into the store and get in a car wreck, or you could be involved in a terrorist explosion. whatever. Everybody's going to die somehow, some way, one day. But you have to stop being controlled by people that have something to gain by you being scared. You're never going to be free, whether you think you live in a free country, you don't, whatever. You're never going to be free as long as you're being controlled by somebody telling you what to be scared of, period. And if the goal is to be free and live in a free country, well, you have to stop listening to the people who are telling you that you should be scared of this and that.
I agree. And also, I'm going to, before we close the show tonight, I'm still calling out Julian Assange. I really think he needs to put this thing to rest.
It ain't gonna happen. I wish it would. I'm not disagreeing with you, but it's not gonna happen. Not from him anyway. If it happens, it'll be through another channel.
But at the same time, will it still be thrown under the bus like anything and every other shred of any kind of information that we've got right now is all pretty much just been all quietly thrown under the bus by mainstream media. We don't care. Russia and Trump.
Oh yeah, they won't. I think even if he did come out, what would come of it? Because he released all that information, right, through WikiLeaks every single day for a month leading up to the election. Everything in the world under the sun came out.
And nobody has discredited the information as being invalid or untrue.
Yep.
Nobody. Not even Clinton herself.
Every bit of it was true. We know every bit of it was true. And what are we talking about? We're talking about, did Russia give them the information? We're not talking about the actual information. We're not talking about what was inside those thousands of documents, those emails. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about...
again, nobody talks about anymore. Everybody talks about the source and where it came from, but nobody talks about the fact that this was an actual, real piece of information, that nothing in there was by any party whatsoever said to be untrue or false.
Yeah, and none of it's addressed is the content. It's just who did it. That's blame. And the content's never addressed. So if Assange did come out, which I don't think would happen, but if he did, I'm sure they'd find a way out around that too, because they certainly found a way around all that information that came out. They just found something to distract people with. We're just going to talk about Russia nonstop.
Now we've got Trump in here, so now we can tie Russia in with Trump, and then bam, we got us a story.
Yeah, and I've said it.
Headline news.
Trump is the best thing that's happened to the establishment. And I know so many people, especially the MSNBC watching hipsters out there, they can't grasp that concept. But the fact of the matter is he is the best thing that's happened to the establishment because he's a walking circus. And that circus... Look, that's three rings going strong. The reason that Barnum and Bailey shut down has anything to do with animal rights. It's because they can't.
They've got some serious competition coming out of Washington.
That's it. And they can't compete with that guy. That guy's he's going to keep the headlines rolling. Love him, hate him, or whatever about him. He's going to get headlines. And look over here. Look at this thing. Look at this. Did you hear what Trump said? Did you hear what Trump tweeted? That's the best thing that the establishment could ever have. They can talk about whatever crazy nonsense while doing whatever they want.
Julian Assange needs to do the right thing. I'm just saying, man.
We shall see. But that's it for us. Anti-Media Radio tonight. We will be back next week. Jake is up next. Nick back on Monday. Anti-Media Radio out.
Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.